Okay, actually, we could have actually done it truly activity based, but since we didn't know how many people, we weren't ambitious enough to sort of set it up for a large number. So I just to sort of introduce you to this concept. So February 12th is Darwin's birthday, and the world over it's celebrated as Darwin Day. Now, I kind of don't like to call it Darwin Day because it's not really about Darwin, it's more about evolution and talking about evolution. So we started calling it Evolution Day. When I went to Delhi University, which was in 2009, I think starting from 2011, we've had some kind of activity on that day to begin with. Then it became Darwin Week, and then it became Darwin Month because, to get the necessary students together and the location, you had to get permissions, and it was getting more and more difficult. Anyway, so it's just a series of activities which have kind of evolved, if you want, over 2 years, I would say, and then developed by every fresh group of students. Now, there the advantage was we had these large MSc classes, and there were some students who really got interested in evolutionary biology. In the first semester and third semester was when I taught it. And so there was this nice group of people, some of whom finished and went on to do their MPhils and PhDs. So there was this continuing kind of continuity of, activity there. And I'm happy to say that they're continuing it. So to begin with, we started doing it just outside our department on the main road where there were, in front of, I don't know if you've been to Delhi University, but the arts faculty is a big hub for demonstrations. And so initially we had it inside the arts faculty, and then we came out, and it just kind of had its own interesting series of changes. And finally we started doing it both there as well as at the flowers show. So we had very different kinds of target audiences for that. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. But before, I just want you to play this game. So this is a board. This is what we used to play, and this is the first time I'm trying this. I don't know how it's going to work online. So here is the game. We're talking about the human-chimp evolution of the humans and chimps. So that's the past and that's the present. So now I want you to arrange these coins, or just tell me, so I'll move them for you, and tell me what should go, since you've had a lot of exposure to this basic concept. So I would say start with the what you know, which is what do you know? Apes. But here we have these coins. So using this, what do you know?
The chimp went to the past.
Whom? The chimp.
Yeah.
Now where is that? It's lying all over the place. I'm not coordinated. Okay. Will it move? Oh, this is a show. I forgot. I have to go back to the. I'm sorry. That was bad. So we have to turn this off. Now you've got the solution, right? So I hope you didn't look at it too carefully. So we want to move the chimp to the past. Here. And they change its shape. And then where do you want to move humans? To the present. Okay? Now? The dark blue near the chimp. Here, like this? Like here? Yeah? Okay.
Light blue near to it.
Light blue near to it. On top? Okay.
The white one.
This one? White. Okay. But this is the time scale. Shall I slant this line? Shall I make it like this? Okay. White is here. Then this pink here. next to it, and then you want the human here. Okay, does that look right? So you're saying here that the chimp evolved into the human.
Should be a common node.
So I want you to arrange this. That's the game.
So it should be from the node.
Tell me. No theory. Here we have practice.
They both should be the same timeline. Present.
Anyone else? He says they should both be in the same timeline
Chimp and then
at the present. Does everyone agree? Yeah? So why did you do it this way? Okay. So here we are. We're moving this here. And then?
the shades of the
This?
should be white.
Huh? No, you tell me what to do. I'm doing this. Huh.
So the shades of respective.
No, specifically move one by one.
The lighter red.
This one.
The one.
This one.
Should be below the red.
Okay.
And that's one.
Okay.
But they meet in a V.
No. Tell me where to put the next one.
One below that.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And blue should go upwards.
This one.
The next one.
This one.
Yeah. Near the gym.
Okay.
And then the lighter blue should come below that.
This should come here. And then
The lighter shades should both be on the white. That should be a common answer.
so does everyone like this? So do you think this is the solution? So what is this telling us? So if you're telling the story from the past to the present, what does it tell you? That there was this creature. So remember, these common ancestors were all species. Remember that whole lineage is species, right? Species, continuity of species. So there was a species. What happened to it? So there was a speciation event. It split in two. And then? What do you mean by evolved? Some change in the character, okay. So that's why it went from white to pink. Okay, then? Okay, let's leave that. We don't know why it happened, but some change happened. Evolutionary change in character. And then it became... So this is one generation, this is many generations later. And over many generations, what happens here? More change? And what is this?
Present.
Modern human.
Right now.
Right now. Okay, what here? Same. No, tell me, you have to, see when you do this, you won't get marks in your exam, no? What's that? Parallelly evolving. Okay, so this is also changing the same way as there were changes in this lineage and leads to the chimp. So the previous way that you had arranged it, you wanted the chimp to gradually become different, which is okay, but you have to keep an eye on where the past and present are, right? So here you were saying that this was going like this and then something happens here and then it becomes a human. Okay, so now if we, where is the, how do I get to the show? To the slideshow, yeah.
Yeah, slideshow on top.
I can't read it. Oh, there it is. Okay. 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 So we go through this, and people usually get it wrong. Now, prior to that, you've had 2 lectures on this, so there's no excuse for you to get it wrong. Now, we usually have displays and sort of walk people through this thing of what we mean by an evolutionary tree. I'll show you that. And then they get it right or they get it wrong. And so then what we do is show them this and then flip over the things, and we'll see that there are different fossils, Homo erectus, habilis, Now the thing is that in the chimpanzees, we don't have intermediate stages between the common ancestor of human and chimp and the chimp. So we don't have anything to show. Now this is also kind of incorrect because, as was pointed out to you, evolution is a tree, not a ladder. But these examples I picked as being, you could argue that they are in the same lineage. Am I right? Sort of. Okay. So the point is that we think, whether we can actually say that this species got transformed into this is a little debatable. But for the purpose of this game, we've sort of taken that liberty and tried not to put two different species on that. But if you have any other ways to suggest of improving this, I'm all ears. Okay, so basically then that's how you start. So you start with a thing about ancestry and things like that, and then we set out the coins and people sort of meddle with it and try different methods. So these are all students who are guiding them through this, talking them through it, and there's the wrong solution that you wanted. Right? So this kind of is a chance for you to both practice your own mastery of these concepts, because sitting and listening to someone talk and actually explaining it to someone else are two very different things. As many of us who've become teachers found out in the first few days of teaching that, oh my God, I don't really know this. I thought I did and I don't, right? So that's because when you're trying to explain it, it sort of opens up gaps in your knowledge, or the continuity of whatever the argument you're making isn't as clean as you thought it was, and so on. So it's a good way to master the subject yourself. So that is one kind of game that we have. So just different, so these, like I said, were in different contexts, different years, at the flower show, different places. So there's also another exhibit, and this I don't have any game to show you or anything, but this is what my students used to call the calendar, because it really was a series of flip chart, I guess. So it was introducing people, and remember, these are most often lay public. Even if they are scientists, they don't know squat about evolution. They know even less about evolutionary history and so on. And what they know is often erroneous. So you basically have to assume nobody knows anything and start from there. Okay, so you sort of talk about the tree of life, and then you give a listing about what is the tree of life, and you wanted to ask, so is it a ladder? And then you sort of work them through why you can't imagine that I don't know what that is, a planaria, I think. Became a tomato plant, became a snake, became human, because that's what the linear thing would suggest, right? If it's a ladder, because that's what we do. These are two things, I don't know whether they're instinctive, but they're definitely part of the European way of philosophy and thinking, that there was a ladder, from below to above, and there's humans right on top and then God up there, right? So the ladder is something intrinsic to our viewing of how diversity is. So the ladder is not right, because here there's only one way up the ladder, whereas in a tree there are different ways up the different branches, and at the tips everybody is equal. Nobody is more advanced than the other or more primitive than the other. So that is another concept that one needs to kind of think about. So then you sort of work them through the argumentation and say, yeah, it's a tree, and then, so what is the tree of life? And then we say, okay, here's the tree of life where we have the bacteria, the archaea, and these are the eukarya, and then you have to ask them to sort of, you give a few suggestive things there and say, where do you want to put humans, right? And so you sort of connect it up and then go through the whole, the ape evolution thing. So this is one exhibit. So there's a bunch of people explaining that to some people, and then some of them we try to set it up so that they look at this first and then go to the game, but sometimes obviously you can't regulate people very well, so it happens that way. So that's one part of it. So this, the tree of life, and we also showed human evolution and the problem with thinking of evolution as a linear thing like this, just presented in diverse ways. So at 1 year they made up this little book in which they had the different flip things. So just different ways to hit them with the same concept. Okay, so that's one set of activities. And then the other one was about the cabbage. So where did it come from? And because I was in a botany department, that was a good point, we could find the plant Brassica oleracea, which might have been the kind of ancestral form of these cabbages and cauliflowers and broccoli and whatever else there is. So you talk about how the plant started off like this, and you select one. Basically, if you're selecting for the cabbage, you're selecting one big apical bud, and you're selecting the most extreme forms so that you something here, right? So over time, the bud size becomes larger and larger and larger until it becomes this huge thing that we have selected, through domestication. So each form of this, broccoli and cauliflower and so on, involves selection of different parts of the plant, but all coming from this type of an ancestral plant. So that's a case, and this is the kind of argumentation that Darwin did a lot, right? He was also different from Wallace in that he spent so much time experimenting. He was basically hiding out in his house and sort of doing all these experiments in his garden and crossing and various kinds of selection experiments, including breeding pigeons and various types of things. So artificial selection is a very, very nice way of showing how selection can happen. Here, there's a selective agent, which is the human being or the human beings or populations of human beings who are selecting particular things very consciously. But then you have to talk about how selection, and this is just different views of the same thing. So Aditi was the person who first came up with this whole setup. This, by the way, has had a lot of help from various students, and I didn't have pictures of all of them. So the next thing that we did was to develop a game on natural selection, which didn't have different forms again, but which involved the ultimate thing. This was the game made by a master student. She didn't like the one we had earlier, so she made up this thing of beetles which were orange and green, and made up this elaborate grassy this thing. So there it involves people just picking up, hunting, being the predator, and these are the prey, and you're hunting them, and you show that over time the frequency of the one kind increases of the other because it is less easily detected in that background. So it's obvious to a lot of us who've had this exposure, but for a lot of people it's not. And like I said, you have to start with variation. So you make that point about variation, that unless you have variation to begin with, nothing's going to change. It's not just going to change into the color of the background just because it's there, right? There has to be some kind of a random mutation which will then may or may not be advantageous. This is at the flower show, so I just love this. Sorry, there were these kids who were just entranced by this whole game. And and some of the students are really good at explaining these things too. So school children of all kinds. So there's lots of potential for this kind of outreach. And then, so this is just a summary of the various kinds of, what I've described here. But the big thing as far as many students were concerned was the street play. What I did forget to do was to put the video on this thing. I have a couple of videos of. So we've done natural selection different ways. So we started off with the moth story. And very quickly we found that people thought it was an environmental thing because pollution, right? So then we decided to do away with moths. And different iterations of this had different hunters, birds hunting some kind of creatures. The butterflies started looking like this, or they then became predator and prey. So Darwin made his appearance once. These rabbits who were so then the story was about how the rabbits, the slowest ones, get caught easier by the predator who is here, this leopard-like person. So the whole thing was done in what they call the Nukkad Natak style, which is, they're very formalized in certain ways, which is different in different places. But that's another thing, but which, needs much more time to develop and so on. The other posters, displays, etc. can be done fairly quickly and easily. So I just wanted to show, I do have pictures of the students, main players in my lab. There were other students and many faculty whose pictures I don't seem to have. but who were very supportive in various ways, including actually participating in act. We also used to have film shows and have discussion after that and so on. So it's just a brief, give you a brief idea.